Hello and welcome to another Shared Screens review. My name's Austin. I will be your host. I remembered to do that this time. I nailed it. Joining me as part of Shared Screens, we have the guy in the chair, Alec Bobko. How you doing, Alec?
Doing pretty good tonight.
Fantastic. Yeah. I mean, it's a review that has a little bit of bad stuff, but a lot of good. So the fact that you're doing good will hopefully give a good impression of this title. We are reviewing Wanted Dead today. And I wanted to just read the description to Wanted Dead to get the start because it's I love the description for a few reasons and I'll explain why. But so here we go. Wanted Dead is a new hybrid slasher shooter from the makers of Ninja Gaiden and Dead or Alive. You follow Stone and her unit coined the Zombie Unit, which is like the coolest
That's
name for a
cool.
unit I've ever heard.
Right?
An elite Hong Kong police squad on a mission to uncover a major corporate conspiracy. So, just that description, what does that make you think, Alec? Because I read that description and I'm like, bonkers, cool ass unit name. I want to play this game.
Uh, I love because I always see here hack and slash and shooter. So the fact that they're like kind of combining that into one game, or one gameplay, is really intriguing to me.
Yeah. And I know, like, just in our Discord, in our little shared screens chat, if you will, I was like, this looks like Sifu with guns. And
Hmm.
I want to say definitively, this is not Sifu with guns. I'm not. That is
Yeah.
not. That is not a knock against this game in any way. I just know that the people in our Discord might have heard that term, so I want that on the record. This is
Yep.
not Sifu with guns. Okay, now that is out of the way. Yeah. So I want to start with the bad, and then we'll get into the good. Okay. So the premise: you are war criminals that kind of like got a contract to be a cop in this game. And I think that's
Cool.
weird, but I'm here
Weird.
for it.
Cool. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. And you'll hear this theme in the weird and bonker stuff, and then I'll get into what that makes me think of in so many ways. But yeah, so essentially, if your contract isn't renewed, they don't go in. Well, I'll get into why I don't exactly know. But if your contract isn't renewed, I think you're screwed. Like I think you go to prison, like essentially, or maybe even worse, like a freaking murder squad. Like I don't know in this world, anything could happen here. So as that premise goes, this whole entire game, narrative, gameplay, all of it reminds me of Metal Gear. And I have not been a huge
Okay.
Metal Gear fan. Well, I've been a fan from afar. I love the narrative and the bonkers
Hmm.
nature of the characters of Metal Gear and the
I've
bonkers
only
nature.
played. I've only played Rising Revengeance and Ground Zero, so I really don't have the biggest touchstone to that
Yeah,
franchise either.
yeah, and I watched Kind of Funny play them, and that's how I consider like my knowledge where that comes from. And I've
Mhm.
dabbled in gameplay of a few, and they never really
Yeah.
hooked me. But the way I want to describe this game, this is still in the intro, not the bad section yet. This is Metal Gear without stealth. And I don't know how people are going to take that because there's like essentially no stealth in this. You can like hide behind cover and stuff, but I don't consider that stealth.
Mhm.
In terms of the aesthetic,
So
the presentation, the combat, the characters, the villains, and the narrative. I wouldn't say the narrative is as good, but they have that
mhm,
bonkers off the wall tech, mech, synthetic stuff. They have all that going
gotcha.
for it, and it all reminds me of Metal Gear. So yes. So did you have a question in there? I thought you were gonna interject
I
it.
did, but
Okay.
it wasn't anything important.
Okay. So yeah, you said that like the hybrid slasher shooter. It was like that kind of you're like that piqued your interest, and
Mhm.
the way I described the combat before going too far into it, just because I'm still on that Metal Gear train, is that this reminds me of both Snake and Raiden in terms of gameplay. Like it mashes them together, and I'm like, just the gameplay as a whole and the aesthetic, it's so cool.
Mhm.
This game is dripping in style, and I love it. So I'm gonna get
Yeah,
right. Go ahead.
it's something I heard in one of the previews. Because we're lucky enough to be given a code. Austin was the lead reviewer, so he got to play it.
Thank you.
So I just looked at previews and watched some trailers of this game. And in one of the previews I watched, they had mentioned that the developers themselves described this game as a AAA love letter to the sixth generation of consoles, so like GameCube, Xbox, PS2. And
I
I
get it.
guess in my mind, would do you say they nail or the how did they or how did they hit the mark of that statement?
Um, sure, because it is a lot of like corridor shooting and stuff. Like
Mhm,
you're just like linear. You're going from point A to point B, fighting and shooting enemies. I would say yes, because the entire time I'm playing this game, I'm thinking of old school Metal Gear the entire time, like
mhm.
the entirety of my play. So if that's what they were aiming for, not necessarily the Metal Gear angle I'm adding to it, but like the old school nature and like making that kind of like modern, yeah, I think they nailed that. That
Okay.
feel, yeah.
Yeah, because that was a follow-up. I was gonna say, does it feel like a good modernization of those kinda old school games, or does it just feel like they missed the mark and it's just a PS2 game with modern graphics?
I would say yes and no, because it does feel modern, but it doesn't feel as polished as I'd like, and I'll get
Gotcha.
into that because there are certain things like like the meat and potatoes of the combat and like the core of this game is
Mhm.
good. I enjoyed
Gotcha.
my time with this game. This game, I said this game. This game is hard as fuck.
Oh, no.
So, that being said, you need to parry in this game. That's not the only aspect that's like hard, but you need to parry in this game, especially when you're taking on bosses.
Mhm.
And I suck at parrying in every
Gotcha.
video game ever made.
So
So, go on.
So I guess real quick, I got one of my questions I have for that
Yeah, please.
is how is the timing of that pairing? Is it like more brutal, like a Souls like kind of game, or is it a bit more forgiving, like kind of God of War Ragnarok? Where
I would say it's very forgiving. I just suck. Like
gotcha,
honest to God,
gotcha.
because like the enemies that I'm struggling with, they have their animation where they do the same thing, and you're supposed to get the timing
Hmm.
down and get it. Like I think I'm just bad. So I want that. So
Gotcha.
I think the game is doing everything they can to
Hmm.
deliver that visual thing so you can get this parry down. I just suck. So so in terms of polish, I wish just
Hmm.
because I'm bad at games, I wish they would have done more to like for difficulty settings for me. Because one of my notes that I
Gotcha. Kind
erased,
of
but
some
I
accessibility
a little bit.
settings.
I erased this note, but I remember it. Their difficulty was like normal, hard, and Japanese hard. That those were the settings. And I'm like, "Oh no. Like what am I getting myself into?"
That's amazing.
I was like, "Oh." Like just like booting up the game, I'm like, "Oh no. Like this is going to be something. This is going to be a doozy." Now, since we're on the difficulty discussion, and this will segue me into the bad. So
Mhm.
there is a mode that turns on and essentially says, "You've been dying a lot. Do you want to turn on Nico Chan mode?" And I was like, "Yes, please." But I mashed the button too much because I was like excited for the setting. And the second prompt that pops up is, "Do you want Nico Chan mode to stay on forever?"
Oh
And
no.
I hit yes, yes. And I'm like, shit. Like me with that decision, I probably would have been like, yeah, let's turn it on for this boss. But when I come back, let's put it back to the
Hmm.
normal difficulty. That decision was taken from me. Again, kind of my fault. So like I was just like, finally I can do something. But yeah,
Hmm.
I was struggling with the first boss. And the first boss is like an enemy you face later on, but I swear to God that first one they just put him on steroids because I face him later,
Hmm.
and again, this is on Nico Chan mode, so maybe it's something that the difficulty already altered, but I had no problem with them later on. Not no problem, but way less of a problem with them later on.
Gotcha.
And it wasn't just like I got used to it. Like it was like your health was like cut in like an eighth. Like you have an eighth of the health that you did before, but that's fine.
Mhm.
That could have been Nico Chan mode. That could have been me. Could have been a balance of those two things. So my note on that is I just wish there was a little bit more I could play with instead of just being you're dying a lot. Here's this mode, which is great. I'm glad that's there for people for
Oh,
players like
yeah.
me, so I can still at least play the game. But I would have preferred like maybe my auto aim is a little bit better, so I can kind of at least like I can if I'm stressing out, I can run away and I can just kind of wail on this guy or just something, just
Mhm.
little things like that.
Yeah, so
Um,
it kinda more like you were talking about, kinda more that polish or that you were
yes,
saying is missing from the game.
and I feel like everything I'm saying take with a grain of salt because I am bad at video games. I've been saying that so many times, but like usually a video game, I can latch on to a certain aspect of the combat, right?
Mhm,
Like I can get really good at the like because you have a katana, you have a pistol, which I really like. I'll get into, and you have two weapons. You have like your main weapon, and then one you can pick up along the way, and you can kind of switch that other one you pick up along the way, and then you have this thing called finishers. There's like there was a term for it. I forget what it was, but it's like essentially an ultimate. Like it's like after you get
mhm.
so many kills or whatever, you can hit down the sticks, and it's essentially an ultimate. I'll get into that later. but like they give you a lot of options to get good at least something, and I got okay with like the katana and stuff, and like just kind of
Okay.
running in and taking the bullets and go, because there's an aspect to it where like if you use your finisher, which you can't use just willy nilly, you have to like get your opponent to like a certain mode where they're like kind of like blinking, and then you can use your finisher on them,
Mhm.
and you can chain that, which is dope too. But so like if that enemy, say, let's say, cut your health in half, like he's just beating your ass. If you get him to the finisher thing and you use a finisher on him, you get most of that health back. Which that
Oh,
I
that's cool.
like. And I know for a fact that was there before I turned on Nico Chan mode, because I was like,
Mhm.
oh my god, I have a chance. You know what I mean? Like I was, oh, I have a fighting spirit now.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I just wish there was more to play with in terms of the difficulty and just altering my play. And there is more ways I can alter my play, and I'll get into that as well. Another bad thing in terms of combat, especially when you suck, is I fought the camera a lot. There was times where like the camera was just like stuck in a corner of the room, and I could see myself, but it was at a
Mhm.
weird angle. And when you're
Yeah.
surrounded by enemies, like I can't even see the three of them that are behind me, so I'm kind of just like blocking and I'm trying to get the camera out of the wall. And when you're stressed out, like don't don't do that to me.
Mhm.
So yeah, the
Or
cam
just get out of the corner.
See see, I would do that, I would run out of the corner, and it's like my camera would slowly catch up to me. It was this weird thing where
Oh, gotcha.
the
So
camera was still just off. There was just something off about the camera. It wasn't
gotcha.
wasn't all the time, but it would always happen at an inopportune moment, I swear. So and then enemies. I'm gonna get into the enemies. Enemies look way too similar. You have a squad. You roll in the zombie squad.
Mhm.
Sorry, zombie unit, and you roll in with them, and they can kind of help you. I don't think they really do enough. You can like get in the
Mhm.
skill tree and select things that they can help you. I don't think they really do enough. But they look a lot like the enemies sometimes. So you're like, when you have people coming from like all angles, and you're trying to like figure out what's what and slash your katana. I try to hit my squad mates so many times. And I'm just like, oh, you're my friend. Sorry, my bad. And you can't hit them. So like maybe they knew that. Maybe that was something they made a decision where like there's no friendly fire, kind of that deal.
Gotcha.
But yeah, there's a lot of times where I'm like, are you an enemy? Like you're hiding behind cover, and
So,
I can't tell. So
so the enemy variety is just not. Oh, oh, okay.
I would say the enemy variety isn't that bad. They just all have the same coat of paint on them. Does that make sense? Like in terms of how
There's
these
not like the aesthetic to them isn't
yes,
necessarily
they don't
different.
they don't differentiate enough. But I would say like
Gotcha.
I wouldn't say the enemy variety is good, but I wouldn't say it's bad. It's
Gotcha.
solid. It's just the way in
Mhm.
which they're presented on screen for me to differentiate them between enemies or civilians or whatever. It
Gotcha.
lacks a
So
little
it's
bit.
just by kind of like the first glance at them, you can't tell like, oh, this is how I need to take this enemy down. This is how I need to take this enemy down. You kind of got a bit closer and actually kind of get into combat.
Exactly. And when there's like
Gotcha.
12 to 20 enemies on screen at times, you're like, "Pff," and then you have your three
Ye-
people running around too. You're like, oh my god. So yeah, and that's another aspect where like if I was able to alter like my color of enemies or something, like in if they gave me that options, like just make them a little brighter or something, or like
Mhm.
like that red kind of like HUD light that sometimes you can
Oh
kind of put
yeah.
on enemies. Yeah, that would have been helpful for me.
Yep. I like that
But
like outline that some games let you
yeah,
put.
that's what I was looking for.
Yeah.
Thank you. You helped me a lot on that one. VO, the VO in this game like is all over the place, and I kind of equate that to Metal Gear too, because I've in my limited experience of Metal Gear, there's characters from different lineages and all over the place, and they're just delivering their lines in a way, and you're like, that's awesome. Some of them, and some of them are just feel off. The exact same thing is here in Wanted Dead, where some of the lines, like even written wise, they're not great. Like some of them is just the delivery, and you're like, oof, that was not great. And some of them is like, oof, even if you delivered that great, that would have been awkward. Like I don't know.
Gotcha.
And it did take me out of the experience a few times. So the VO is not great. Sorry, I had a hitch in my throat. Speaking of hitches, that's my next note. I had some hitches and some frame drops and certain animations, and in the midst of combat. Clipping and stuff like that were happening where like in a clipping for me is never that big of a deal because I don't really care if like my sword goes through like a wall or something it's not supposed to, like that it doesn't
Mhm.
really, it doesn't bother me, but like it did happen. And didn't take me out of the experience, but it was like the hitching and the frame drops that kind of was like, all right, like I'm in the midst of combat, I don't need this happening right now.
Are we playing on a Series S?
I was playing on a Series S. Thank you, Alec. That is very important. I was playing on a Series S, so maybe those on Series X would not have that issue. Thank you, Alec, for
Yep.
keeping me honest. Um, and then the meat and potatoes of the bad. I had two hard crashes. The first crash was at a boss, and my game just shut off. You know, like it went to my home screen on Xbox. Cool. I come back. and the checkpoint was not great. The checkpointing in this game in general is not great. It will never
Mm,
and it'll never put you like so far back, but it always puts you at like the beginning of your combat. Like
that's
categorize
so rough.
I categorize this as like there's a combat because there's like three levels I would say to pretty much every like
Mhm.
level you're into for like the game. And there's like the segment which has like 4 beats, and each segment has like 4 beats, right? And then the boss
Gotcha.
is at the end of them. And I'll get through the first 3 beats of enemies, I'll get to the boss and I'll lose. It puts me all the way back to the first beat, if that makes sense. And it's
Yeah.
like
So
some of them take forever to get to and some of them don't, but like it never
mhm.
felt like they were giving me an adequate, like I would, if you just put it in half, like halfway, cool, I would have been completely okay with that. Or at the beginning of the boss,
Yeah.
just for the bosses it would have helped, but the checkpointing, I felt like it brought me too far back.
Yeah, I had that issue with High on Life at times
Yeah.
where there's just some extremely long encounters and just have some better checkpoints in games. Like it's unless like, it's just rough to have to redo so many things when you're just like missed a button prompt or went the wrong way or just
Hmm.
like stupid things and you have
And
to
for
redo the entire thing.
right, and for me, because I'm bad at the game, I didn't even know if I was facing certain enemies the right way because it doesn't really teach you much. It teaches you
Gotcha.
because there's training mode that opens up and you can like work on your skills and get better at it, but it doesn't
Mhm.
necessarily teach you how to approach certain enemies. Like again, the variety is there,
Gotcha.
but it doesn't necessarily like walk you through how to approach like the big guys with grenades and or grenade launchers and stuff. And
Mm.
so like I would get right there, like right at the cusp of beating this boss, and I'd lose. And sometimes you get like an injection in your back and then you can fight again and you can try.
Mhm.
Sometimes you don't. And so it would put me all the way back for like the first encounter for this level. And I'm like, I just don't, if I wasn't reviewing this, I would take a break, but I can't afford to take a break right now. So here I go. So,
Yep.
and then that never ends well when you're like playing a game and you're like, I don't want to be playing this game right now. So,
Mhm.
um, the second crash, which is the main issue that I need to talk about, I did not finish this game. I'm like 90% sure I'm like right at the end, but
Mhm.
I got a hard crash that literally turned off my Xbox. It just
Oh
turned it
no.
straight off. And so I booted it back up. I go to the level, and I noticed that in my top left, they'll show you the objectives. They're very vague all the time.
Mhm.
It's always like clear out this warehouse or
Mhm.
go in the building. It's very
Oh
vague. You're like,
jeez.
cool. You kind of figure it out with context clues because like sometimes
Right.
you're
Yeah.
outside
Yeah.
the entire time, and then there's a building. You know what I mean? Yeah, whatever. Um, but my prompt at the top left was the same that it was at the very end of this level, and I booted in at the beginning of this level, and I was like, "Oof, that's probably not great." So I get
Oh.
through most of the level, and I go to the door that what crashed my game is me hitting the button to open a door, and it just turned
Mhm.
off, and it just didn't like it. I don't know what I did. It didn't like it.
Mm.
So I come back to do this again. I clear out the area. I got really good at this fucking level. Let me tell you, like I was fucking speed running this shit because I had to do this like 8 or 9 times to see if I could get it to work.
Right.
And it just nothing. I got to this
Oh,
door in this
that's
corridor and no
oh,
prompt.
that sucks.
Yep, no prompt. But I still feel like I have enough knowledge on this game to give an
Mhm.
adequate review. But I need to put that out there that I have not
Oh, for sure.
technically rolled credits on this game. I'm pretty sure that I'm fairly close to the end though.
But I mean,
So
you get like 90% of the way through the game. Like a game like this, it's
mhm,
like you've played enough of it to
mhm.
yeah.
Sorry, I have something in my throat. Um, And even with this, like I on a game that's very combat focused, like I
Mhm.
understand the combat a lot now. I unlocked everything in the skill tree. So like I played a lot of this game. Like
Mhm.
everything was unlocked. And I messed with a bunch of attachments for my weapons, which I'll get into.
Mhm.
So yeah.
I guess real quick while you're on the skill tree,
Sure.
was is it a satisfying skill tree or does it have a good upgrade path?
Um I would say yes in the form that I felt I was genuinely getting better.
Mhm.
With these things I was selecting. Like, I was dying a lot in this level, so I literally just said, "Give me more stim packs," which is like the health you just inject yourself with, and that
Mhm.
helped. I was like, it was like I'm like right there. I'm right there. If I just die one
Yep.
less time, I'm gonna get this fucker. And there it is.
Mhm.
That's a poor example, but I think you understand what I'm getting at. Like
Yeah.
I felt like there were enough there was enough variety. There was like three main paths. I don't remember what they were called.
Mhm.
It's like utility, sword, and something else. I should probably look into that. Anyway, but yeah, there was enough variety there where I felt like I could genuinely cater it to how I'm playing. So
That's cool.
that helped. Yes. So like I'm bad at parrying. There was one near the bottom. I wish it was a little earlier, but there's one near the bottom that says like make the parry window a little bit bigger, and now you can parry
I
the ult.
love those.
And now you can parry like the really heavy attack rather than you had to dodge that one before. Now you can parry that.
Mhm.
So like it had I would say it had a serviceable at least
Okay.
skill tree. Yeah. It didn't feel like it was lacking. Okay. So combat. This game is fucking hard. But I really enjoyed the swordplay. You
Mhm.
just kind of run in, you can slash it, and then you gain with the skill tree more combos you can add to that, more like things you can add to the end of the combo. But the thing that stood out to me is like the finisher because you can chain it. Like I said, once you get them down, certain enemies you can where they're like blinking, you can use your finisher, and if you use your ultimate, which is like just you kill a bunch of enemies and you build up this like little circle, and once it's full, you can
Mhm.
use it. If you use your finisher, or sorry, if you use your ultimate in the middle of like a bunch of people, what you do is you just like you just spray a bunch. You just like all around, and everyone who just got hit is now blinking. And now you just hit finisher, boom. You like freaking teleport to them, and you do your finisher on them, and you just hit the finisher again. You teleport to someone else, so you can kill like I would say up to 6 or 7 people in like 10 seconds if you do it right.
Oh,
If you just
wow.
you use your ult, you'll all of them are blinking now, your finisher, and you can just take a bunch of them out at the same time. That's very satisfying. I enjoyed that a lot. The other
Mhm.
part of the combat that I enjoyed was the pistol. The pistol, you have unlimited ammo with the pistol, but the pistol is pretty much just used as a stun. So you're like slice, slice,
Oh,
slice,
okay.
boom, and they're like and they get thrown back. So you
It's
can
like a little
slice,
bit of
slice,
a
slice some more.
knockback.
Yes,
It's like a stun. Yeah, knockback
yes,
stun. Yeah, kinda same
yes.
thing.
And with the attachments, you're able to cater like more catering to my gameplay, which I like that. And
Mhm.
maybe that's why the accessibility wasn't there. I don't think that's a good that's a good excuse, but like that you were able to cater for how you are lacking in certain areas. Like the
Mhm.
attachments helped with accuracy, duh, and like damage and all that. So like I just focused on accuracy because I suck at shooters, and then stopping power, which I hope I was doing that right. I hope was the pistol and like stunning them a little bit, like stopping them in their tracks. So I just focused on those two columns, and it did seem to help. So it did seem
Mhm.
to like keep them at bay, so I can like at least try to get this through. Yes, blocking and
Um,
parrying is there. Parrying is essential. If you cannot parry, you are screwed. Hello, I found out the hard way.
gotcha.
So,
Um, that's one quick question was,
mm.
the flow between the melee combat and the range combat. How did that feel good, in this game?
I would say it felt serviceable. Because I did feel like I had to like, oh, I should probably shoot now. Oh, I should probably use my sword now. Like it was never like,
Mm,
it never felt like a natural blending of the two, but it never felt like I was forcing myself to do one or the other. It was just like
mm,
you would go into an encounter and there'd be like 6 people hiding behind cover. So you're like, okay, either I like sprint in there and just take a bunch of bullets, take them out, or I hide behind cover too and I start using my rifle or
mhm,
whatever I have. So I think in the terms of how they present encounters like that, you are encouraged enough to use your weapons as well as your sword, your rifles and your guns as well as your
mhm.
sword. Well enough.
Did you happen to favor one over the other?
I like the sword a lot. Like at any opportunity I had to just kind of sprint in there and use my sword, I was doing that. But
Nice.
there was a shotgun. Essentially, I don't think I was using it correctly because like I would shoot someone in the head
Mm,
and they would just keep coming, and I'm like, oof, all right. So I never touched that again.
mhm.
But yeah.
And then I guess kind of along that line, do you feel there's any penalty if you like stick to more or mostly one side?
Um,
The
maybe a
basically
little bit.
katana or like the ranged weapons.
Yeah, maybe a little bit. Like because like I said before, you can cater your gameplay and your attachments and your skill trees to like focus on one area or like an area you're bad in. So
Mhm.
if you really want to use the katana, I think you can kind of make that a thing where you're favoring that a lot. But I do think there are going to be moments where you have to use that, especially when you're facing some of the big slower guys and you can just kind of wail on them for a little bit and
Gotcha.
kind of take their health down. Which again, that could be wrong for me, but I know that helped me personally get through some of the bigger boss
Okay.
encounters with like these people who just heavily armored. They're kind of slow. They can charge at you and hit you down, but like they're
Mhm.
fairly slow and they have like they can throw grenades and they can essentially have like a grenade launcher. The enemies. Did you ever play Fear, Alec? Have you
I
seen?
did not know.
Okay. Well, those who have played Fear, which is not a lot of us, but I fucking love Fear. The enemies feel a lot like Fear for the 2 people that will understand that.
Mhm.
There's a chainsaw in this game. that's just kind of it's randomly there, and they're like, you know what? Just have some fun. Just pick this up and
Okay.
just because as soon as you hit them, it's an instant kill. On
Oh, gotcha.
this thing pops up on the screen and says censored. Can't show this. Censored. So
That's hilarious.
that's fun. That's fun. I enjoyed that.
Um,
Go ahead.
Outside, still kind of gameplay. Does the combat ever feel, or did it ever get repetitive at all? Or like, I mean, I'm assuming what your game. How long did it take you to play this game, or how
I
many
don't
hours did you put in?
I
I
don't
should
know for
say.
sure, but I would say probably 8 to 10 is where I was at.
Okay,
Yeah.
that was kind of I was guessing like the kind of 10ish hour mark.
Mhm.
But I was just like being that long of a game, does it feel super button mashy, or does it actually feel like you're kind of in that flow? Like, okay, let me use this combo, let me use this attack, let me pull out my gun, and get into that flow state.
I would say I did. I would say one. I think I did eventually find that flow state again in Nico Chan mode because I'm bad at this game. But
Mhm.
I think I did eventually get better. I will say yes. It feels a little bit repetitive for like A, but option B to that is like again, I'm very bad at this game, so I had to play probably certain segments more than I should have.
Gotcha.
So it felt repetitive, yes, but that might have been part my fault again because I'm just bad and I had to get better. I had to get good, Alec.
Hmm.
So I did play a lot of levels repeatedly to get through them. I talked about the attachments. I said I focused on accuracy and stopping power. The way you get these attachments is like essentially the checkpoints in the game that there are not enough of. I understand if you limited the checkpoints because you don't want them to alter their attachments as much because might make it a little easy. But then just have some of them where you when you can't. Like this one
Yeah.
is just a checkpoint. There would be like a little drone who's controlled by a character
Oh, gotcha.
named Gunsmith, or that I don't know if that's not her name or that's just her role, but she's pretty much referred to as Gunsmith. Even
Hmm.
like the caption for the captions at the bottom said like Gunsmith is saying this or whatever.
Hmm.
So yeah, you find that, and then it refills your grenades, it refills your health, it refills your bar for your ultimate and your ammo and all that, and then you can go through your attachments and stuff. Um, Skill tree, I briefly touched on that. I felt like that went really fast. Like I think I had half of my skill tree unlocked by when I was on like the second level. Like
Holy cow.
it just gives you it just throws a bunch of shit at you. And again, maybe that's them understanding this game is hard. They're like, hey, let's help them out a lot
Hmm.
at the beginning. But I just felt like there wasn't enough polish in all that felt like a half step to get better. Does that make sense?
Gotcha.
Like, hey, this
Yeah.
game's hard. We're gonna make sure that they can get a
Give
bunch
you
of
a bunch of
skill.
XP at the beginning.
Yes, but, like, I felt like that was almost their excuse to, like, "It's hard, but here you go," and I don't feel like
Hmm.
"but here you go" helped enough. It helped,
Gotcha.
but I don't know if it helped enough.
Hmm.
Do you know the super hot fire GIF? Do you know what I'm talking about? It's, like, a bunch of guys and, like, they're like, "Oh," and the guy in the middle is just, like, mean mugging the
Oh,
camera,
yeah,
and then
yeah, yeah,
someone goes
yeah,
across the
yeah.
screen like this.
Yep. Yep.
That's their loading screen with the
That's
characters with
hilarious.
the characters that they made, and the first time I saw it, I was like, "What?" And then I had
See,
to
I didn't know that had a name. That was
Yes,
that was
I
why
didn't know
I
either.
was thinking the game like super hot. That's what I was thinking of when you said
Sure,
that.
sure, that makes sense, but yeah, so for those who don't know what I'm talking about, literally just search super hot fire GIF, and you'll know what I'm talking about. It's a GIF you've seen a
It's
lot,
yeah.
I
Yep.
promise. It's memed out the
Even
wazoo
even Sony, like they've like remade this GIF with like
with
every one
Kratos.
of their games.
Yeah.
Kratos, The Last of Us, I think, has even done it.
But yes, that is their loading screen, which again, the loading screens are always like
That's
2
awesome.
seconds, which is good with
Mhm.
especially for a Series S. But yeah, every loading screen I saw was that, and it made me laugh almost every time. It never got old. So, another plus that I enjoyed, I those who watch Kind of Funny and like their PS I Love You, they said like give for the trophies thing. They were having like a 10 commandments or whatever for like trophies,
Mhm.
and they said like give a lot of them early. Right? That was a good thing, like, give me a bunch
Yeah.
like, make me feel like I'm doing something right. I got a shit ton of achievements right from the get-go, like, I'm getting in here, and I'm getting a bunch of them.
That's awesome.
I think I had 15 to 20 within the first half hour.
Holy cow.
Like, it was a lot, and so I'm like, "Damn," like, I feel like I'm doing something, but, yeah, I'm getting my ass kicked. So, like, I don't
Mhm.
it's a push and pull here. But, yeah, I thought that was cool. It made me feel like it made me want to keep playing. Um the narrative itself, like I mentioned, like it does kind of feel like a Metal Gear narrative where it's bonkers, it's off the wall, it's
Mhm,
dealing with like espionage in a way where like the government's kind of fucking with stuff. I don't want to say because I'm comparing it to Metal Gear, people be like, "There's no way it's as good." It probably isn't, but like that's
mhm.
the feel I got of the aura
Gotcha.
of the narrative, what they were going for.
So
Um,
along those lines, I gotta have a question.
sure.
Does is this one of those games where gameplay shines over the narrative? Kind of for me, in the game that kind of made it when I thought of this question is like Neon White, for example. Like that game is gameplay for most people.
Hmm.
Everybody kind of skips through the story just to get to that gameplay.
Hmm.
Um, I guess would is this game kind of similar to that, or would you say that the narrative is at least like serviceable, or you still want to at least watch it and pay attention to it?
As someone who did not play Neon White, would you say, because I thought I saw some cutscenes where it's like it was pretty much like an anime inspired cutscene, right, for
Yeah,
Neon
it's
White?
a lot
So
of visual novel esque.
okay, so would you say at least in Neon White there was an attempt to make the narrative compelling? There was an attempt
Oh
to
yeah,
put to have a
I actually kind of
good
enjoyed it, but it's just one of those things. Like if you're not super into like visual novels and like that kind of stuff, I can
yeah.
see where people want to like skip through that.
I
But
feel the exact
it's
same way for this game. Like I
okay.
think the narrative is serviceable and I enjoyed it, but like I would probably say it's gameplay heavy. I would like the focus is
Mhm.
probably on the gameplay, but I do think
Which we could,
there's an attempt that the narrative
mhm,
is also carrying its own weight, if that makes sense.
which you can. Like that was the big reason reason I asked that question is like the
Mhm.
gameplay looks awesome in the trailers.
And it's fun. It's a fun ass game. It's bonkers the whole
Hmm.
time. You're like, what the hell is happening? Like I'm slicing through these like robotic synthetic android looking people and
Hmm.
your crew is like yelling at you like we got to go this way and then there's the story will go through a cutscene and it's like a Metal Gear villain just came out of a closet and is just staring you down and you're nowhere near that guy and you're like okay cool thank you Mr. Random I'll get to you in
Hmm.
in a moment like it's just that kind of stuff the entire time like it's just weird.
Gotcha.
I was into it but like
Hmm.
if you ask me hey sum up the story I can't I can't I cannot do
Hmm.
that. There's a bunch of nonsense going around, and I mean, you're a what I say, like a war criminal who became a detective. So like that right there, you're like, I don't know about that. But
Hmm.
the Neon White thing, like an animated kind of, you said visual novel. Like there's an anime cutscenes in this as well. There are in-engine cutscenes too. Like I don't want to say all the
Hmm.
cutscenes are like anime, but there's really pretty like astonishing looking anime cutscenes in this game about like the backstory for certain characters, and I
Oh,
really
okay.
enjoyed that. There's also a really
Which
heavy cutscene that's in engine, and it was beautiful. But
okay.
I think
Um,
they put all their budget into that one in engine cutscene, and it was really good.
gotcha.
But
So along those lines, because that's something one of the previews I watched, they did talk about how there's a lot of different styles in this game where you have like the in-engine cutscenes, you have
uh,
the anime-looking cutscenes, and
uh,
then even said live action.
no, just if I said that, I didn't mean to. There,
No,
I don't.
I'm saying this is one of the previews I watched.
The live action thing, you're talking about like the cooking commercial thing? Is that what you're talking about?
Potentially, I don't.
Yeah, I think that was just another ad that they had.
Oh, gotcha.
But that vibe living in this world makes total sense. Like them just like
Mhm,
leaning on that like kind of Fallout-ish, you know what I mean?
mhm.
Kinda like they're just kinda leaning that area. Yeah. Yeah, that
So
totally makes sense.
was
But there
that?
I
I
don't
guess
remember
was
any live
it
action stuff.
the? Well, I guess my question is, was the transition between those different art styles jarring at all? Seems like I know, like, because in the example I thought of, like Persona 5, because it's more animated game, or kind of, it's more, let's say, an animated game, not most necessarily photorealistic. It's not quite as jarring when you jump to an anime cutscene and then back to that gameplay or in-engine cutscene. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I totally get that. I don't think it was jarring. I can see it being jarring for some people, actually, now that like with in retrospect, but I didn't find it jarring. I would say
Mm,
most of the cutscenes are in engine. I would say
okay.
like 75 to 85% are in engine. There's only a few anime cutscenes, so when they come, you're like, "Oh, cool." Like it's not
Okay.
like we're
Gotcha.
going back and forth a bunch. So,
Gotcha.
yeah. I was supposed to do an intermission talking about our stuff, but you know what? Just hey, if you hi, we're from Shared Screens. If you like what we're doing, give us a like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Share our stuff. That's a huge aspect of it. Um, Yeah,
We're almost to
are
400 subs. Just
almost
400
there.
subs.
Hopefully by the time this no, I'm just kidding. But that'd be cool. Like, if we post this and we're already at 400, that'd be awesome. But yeah, we're
Mhm.
right at the cusp of 400 subscribers. That would be awesome. So if you're liking this review, please give us a like, subscribe, share, all that fun stuff. That was supposed to be in the middle of our conversation. I forgot. That's on me. What other stuff did we put up recently? We had like the Dead franchises one. We had that stream was really fun. The Valentine's Day
Yeah, the
stream.
Valentine's Day stream, and then other podcast that I had a good time on, that was the live service games are dying one.
Yeah, that's what's getting at.
That just went up
I said Dead
this past
franchises, but
Sunday.
yes, yeah, that was. I felt like a really genuine. Like, I'm not trying to talk out of my ass and give us a good review. Like, that felt like a good conversation. I really enjoyed that one.
Mhm.
Okay, so I think that's everything.
I
Oh,
do
the game.
have.
The game has a good soundtrack.
Oh,
I
nice.
am not the person who that jumps out for me. Like, that's not something like
Mhm.
I include on most of my notes for writing, but it jumped out to me. Like, it wasn't. Yeah, okay, it's an original soundtrack, but it's all like covers of songs that I knew. Does that
Gotcha.
make sense? Like, they have their
Yeah.
like like I Shazammed that song while it was playing, and the cover for that song is literally the game. Like, it's their own soundtrack. So, like, yeah. So, and I enjoyed the soundtrack. It was very, very good. That's all. I'm not the person for soundtrack, so I'm trying to just walk past that. But yes, I enjoyed the soundtrack.
Gotcha.
So,
Gotcha.
any last questions before I give this game a score? Now I've just rambled
Yeah.
about this title.
So I noticed in some of the trailers and the previews that they talked about all these interesting mini games that they have in between levels.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. There are some mini games. There's like
So, oh, go ahead. I'll let you
okay.
describe them. But
Um, I wouldn't categorize them all as mini games, but just to lump them all in like the other activities you can do. Like, there's like a hub area, which is essentially the police HQ, and you can
Mhm.
go around doing claw games. You can play like arcade cabinets. Of course, there's a there's a option to kick the arcade or the claw games, and if you kick it too much, you can't use it anymore. So I think I broke it.
That's
So
funny.
that's on brand for me. Getting mad at shit. So yep. But there's two of them. I think they realized, oh, you didn't know you would break it. Here's another one. So
Mm.
good job, Dev. Um, but then again, there's also like these rhythm segments. I ran into two, maybe three. The first one is like a rhythm segment when you're eating ramen, which didn't make any sense to me. It was like an intermission between your characters to get to know the characters better.
Yeah.
It was an awkward moment. There was like some misogynistic tones, like some sexual
Mm.
nonsense in there, which I didn't appreciate. But the rhythm segment was fine in that moment. There was another
Mhm.
rhythm segment later on. It was offbeat.
Oh
It was
no.
not on rhythm. So I'm trying to do this one using an Xbox controller, which I am primarily a PlayStation player. So, like, that's always hard for me. But I also have a Switch, and with all the buttons, I'm like, fuck.
Oh yeah.
So that was hard for me already, and then it was off beat, and it hurt me so much. I literally just put the controller down. I said, no, I don't care. I'm watching it go by. I'm like, no, because you can't fail. It's like, it's a thing where you just go
Gotcha.
through it. You get a high score. You can redo this if you want to try to get a higher score later on. So yeah.
Are there any
Um,
achievements tied to this? I'm assuming.
Probably. I didn't fucking get them. I would assume so because, again, there is a high score thing there, so that would make
Mhm.
total sense for me. And there's something you can unlock like as an addition to the training room, which is like 5 little categories that as soon as
Mhm.
you complete the first mission, they all unlock. I think,
Gotcha.
and they look like fun. Like, they were not related to like shooting range, like the first one was, right? But they were
Mhm.
like just random things, so that they were mini games per se in there that unlock right at the beginning of the game for the most
Mhm.
part. So.
Yeah, I heard there was like some sort of kind of like a shoot 'em up kind of a mini game that was, or kind of
Um,
an arcade game
there
that.
the game that I played was like for like an arcade cabinet one was
Yeah.
like a Grady. I don't know how Gradius works, but you're like a shooting thing on the side, and there's like enemies
Yeah.
in space that pop up. Is that
Yep.
what you mean? Yeah, I did
Yeah.
play that.
Shoot 'em up. Yep.
I did play that.
Shmups. Yeah.
Shmups. I did play that. I sucked at that too.
Yeah,
I
because
died pretty quickly.
I heard that they. I mean, granted, but this won't really matter by the time this comes out tomorrow. But I heard that they actually released that as like kind of like a freebie before the game launches.
Oh
But then to be able to play that, you actually have to buy the game. Which I guess to lead into my questions. Do those mini games kind of feel out of place in between? Like, do you feel like if
no.
they, or I guess, would you rather than those not be included so that way they would have more time to polish up the game?
No. I mean, does the game need more polish? Yes. Do I think not including these mini games would help? I don't think so. I think it makes sense for
Gotcha.
what the game they're making. Like it's just
Okay.
here's this random ass idea that should not be here, but it works. You know what I mean? Like it's
Mhm.
that kind of aura about it. It's all just bonkers nature.
Gotcha.
I've been saying that this game is just bonkers and fun. It's not as
Mhm.
polished as I want it to be, but it is bonkers fun. And you turn around the corner, there might be a guy who's talking about his cat, and you're like, "All right, dude, like I don't have
Mhm.
time for this." But like random stuff like that happens all the time, and it's just a fun time. So I don't think the mini games felt like they belonged in this world,
Okay.
if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I guess my final question, because I was looking at Steam, they didn't have a price out for it yet. I just, while we're on the podcast, I quick looked it up.
Oh.
Saw it is going to be $60.
Oof. Oof.
What are your
Okay.
thoughts on that?
Okay. I understand games are hard to make. I really like uh, more power to you devs. Who are like Soli? I don't know how to pronounce
Yeah, I think that was it.
something like that. SOLEILLTD. And the publisher is 110 Industries, who sent me the code. Thank you very much. So games are hard to make. I understand. You need to get your money back. This game is a good video game, I would say. Like it is worth your
Mhm.
money. $60 is a lot. You said 60, right?
Yep. 59.99.
Six, 60 is a lot. I don't think it's outrageous, but I
Mm,
think like around 40 would have been perfect. Just
gotcha.
mwah. But that's just me.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I don't think 60 is like a game breaker, but I think 40 would have been the sweet spot. If
Okay.
that makes sense. Yeah. Okay. So, Alec, I decided to give Wanted Dead the way I worded it for the review that's coming up, the snippet, the TikTok,
Mhm.
a genuinely strong 6.5, which I know sounds weird.
Right.
Like, you know those video games you're like, there's enough here that I like, but I can't say everyone should play this game. I can't say that because there's not enough polish. That definitely goes places where if you want a focused experience, you're not going to get that. Like it is
Mhm.
weird. It's an odd
I
one.
believe it's what is this? It's one of the Easy Ally guys. He always called it a swimming in sevens.
It's swimming in
So it's
sevens, and
like it's one of those like not gonna be everybody's cup of tea, but man, there's some people that they just vibe with it and they love it,
hmm
and
hmm
they just calls those swimming in sevens.
hmm and I think the reason it's a 6.5 instead of a 7 is because of that hard crash at the end. Like
Gotcha.
I can
Yep.
assume that will be patched, but I don't know. I
Hmm.
I don't know. So a big reason is because like you said, the swimming in sevens, you just vibe with it. People really like those sevens. I would say I was this close to vibing with it. Like I'm right there. I'm
Hmm.
right at the cusp. So I think even without the crash, it would have been a 7. Like it would have barely a 7. But like
Hmm.
with the crash, it's a 6.5. And again, I think it's a strong 6.5, which I know sounds
Hmm.
weird, but I think
Yeah.
it's a strong 6.5. That is the score I am giving Wanted Dead.
Okay.
Does that sound accurate to you from what you've heard today, Alec?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Let's see if I missed anything. Let me go through. No. Okay. We had shared screens. I'm the lead reviewer. Hello, hi, I'm Austin. We are giving Wanted Dead a 6.5. What do you think of our score? Comment below. Also, check out our other reviews. What did we review before this? What was the last one we did?
Forspoken.
Forspoken. That was a good discussion too.
That was.
Alec led our review on that one. This guy right here across from me. So yeah, give our other reviews a view, a like, a comment, all that stuff. Share, subscribe, and for the most part, thank you for watching. Thank you so very much. Remember to subscribe. Say that again. Please do that. We're so close to 400. I'm gonna wave goodbye to the camera now. Goodbye.
Bye.